That's it, we're on live.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, members. Good morning, officers. Welcome to our meeting of the Staffing Matters Review Subcommittee. I'm very grateful to you all for making time during this festive period to be here, and to our officers in particular for their work throughout this period in pulling these reports together. Before we start, I should say this is a remote meeting of the council. It is being streamed live onto the council's YouTube channel. We're not in control of the live comment section. If you are using the live comment section, please do so considerately of others. We've got 5 items on the agenda. We are going to deal, as we've done previously in these meetings, with amendments to the additional restrictions grant policy, which enables us to react to the fact that 24 hours after we did this last time, we moved from tier 3 into tier 4, and therefore an amendment needs to be made, and then also to look at another item that we discussed previously, which was around the people falling through that gap of not receiving any support via the furlough or the self-employed scheme, but may be able to get support in some other ways. And we'll debate that as well in a moment. Firstly, in terms of apologies, we have none. Councillor Smith will be joining us in a moment, technology permitting. Members, agenda item 2 are declarations of interest. Does any member have any declarations? No member is indicating. Councillor Headley?
Only my normal one, that I'm a dual member being elected to Essex County Council.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Agenda item 3 are the minutes of our previous meeting that were held on the 18th of December. Are there any matters arising from those minutes from members? In which case, if I could ask you to unmute yourselves, we'll move to a vote on the minutes. Councillor Baggott, how do you vote?
For.
Councillor Headley?
For.
And I vote in favour as well. Thank you, members. Agenda item 4 is the ARG policy amendment, and this obviously, as I say, does reflect the change from the meeting we held on that Friday when we were in tier 3, and then the Prime Minister announced on the Saturday that we were moving into the new tier 4. Tremendous amount of effort gone into this again from our officers. We jumped from tier 2 to 4 in a week, and therefore the changes to the policy needed to be made. I should also point out that myself and the Chief Executive were on a call on that Saturday night with the Secretary of State, where he was alluding to the ARG and alluding to the fact that council should be looking to spend the ARG in order to get this money out to businesses quicker. And I think that is reflected in terms of what we're trying to do here and in the progress that has been made previously on the changes we made on the 18th of December. So Shanna, do you want to kick us off in terms of highlighting the changes, but also that schedule of monies that you got out in that period as well after the 8th?
Of course. Thank you, Chair. The additional restrictions grant was announced on the 31st of October, and as you know, a report was brought to Staffing Matters and Review Subcommittee on the 12th of November. This report was particularly aimed at supporting businesses through tier 2 restrictions and set out a number of criteria in order to support those most in need and manage the amount of grant available. A further report was approved at Staffing Matters and Review Subcommittee on the 18th to amend the policy due to the introduction of tier 3 restrictions in the borough from the 16th of December. And as a result of this decision, by Christmas Eve, our team had paid out £383,500 in additional ARG top-ups. They've all been processed. Some would have hit accounts and some will hit accounts or they would have all hit the accounts yesterday. So we managed to process all of those payments as a result of the decision made by this committee. Further to this approval, on the 18th of December, the government announced additional restrictions and Basildon Borough Council entered tier 4 restrictions on the 20th of December 2020, meaning that all non-essential retail, barbers, hairdressers, beauty salons, gyms and leisure facilities and a few more have closed. Therefore, this subcommittee is being asked to agree the addition of tier 4 and potential higher restrictions or tiers as recognised local COVID alert levels within this policy. to approve further expenditure of additional restrictions grant payable to businesses that have newly closed as a result of Tier 4 restrictions. In summary, the report seeking to provide additional financial support from the additional restrictions grant that will allow a one-off payment to every applicant that's been awarded local restrictions grant closed, local restrictions grant open, and the additional restrictions grant standard scheme as a result of Tier 4 restrictions. This is a one-off fixed payment funded by the additional restrictions grant, which will be either 500, 1,000 or 1,500 dependent on the business's rateable value or based on the business's previous additional restrictions grant where no business rates liability applies. This is a one-off fixed payment to support during Tier 4 and can only be applied for in the current additional restrictions grant window, which we agreed to previously extend, which will close on the 10th of January 2021 or potentially sooner if the total expenditure of the ARG schemes as part of this first window hit the funding allocation threshold of £2.3.5 million. This will help a further 900 businesses with the expected total grant expenditure of a further £665,000. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Shanna. Councillor Smith is also with us now. Just before we kick off, Councillor Smith, just in respect of declarations of interest, Councillor Headley declared as a county member, and obviously that is referenced in this report. I don't know if you wish to declare an interest at that stage.
To be honest, just declare any interest. We got this agenda late last night and I couldn't open it up till half an hour ago.
Okay, so we'll note that down as a declaration. Okay, in terms of the report then, so, I mean, firstly, phenomenal effort to get over 350 grand out in the days leading up to Christmas, and that hitting the accounts of those businesses. And then again, the pulling this report together over the Christmas period as well is a huge effort. And thank you to everybody who has been involved in doing that. The feedback I've had from the public has been that the officers who are involved in the Business Hub have been brilliant. And have been really, really good. So please do pass back to your team, Shanna, the feedback from the public, even if they've not necessarily got what they've wanted, the way in which it has been explained and understood, and the other avenues available to them have been, I think, a huge help to those businesses. Members, is there anybody who wishes to come in? Councillor Baggott.
Thanks, Chairman. I mean, I'd like, from our point of view, to also echo thanks to officers. I think that it's absolutely a superlative effort that they've put in on this, on something which is important. And Councillor Callaghan is right. You know, we had this meeting and then we moved to Tier 4. The whole issue around COVID is something that's changing. There has been talk that there might be a Tier 5 introduced, and we don't know what that involves. But I'm just wondering, and I'm not going to die in a ditch over it, is there any flexibility we could put now to give officers the ability that were Tier 5 to come in to just proceed with whatever needs to be done, rather than being behind the curve a little bit and having to call another of these meetings should that happen and should we find ourselves in it?
Thank you, Councillor Bay. I mean, for the record, and I may end up with egg on my face at 4 o'clock this afternoon. There has been no mention to either myself or to the Chief Exec or to the ERF or anyone else of a Tier 5. I think this is a pretty good rumour that's circulating on social media. But there may be tightening of the existing restrictions within Tier 4 areas. But we are expecting the announcement later on to be about moving 3 counties, Cumbria, Lancashire, and one other that I can't remember, into Tier 4. As opposed to any changes to Tier 4 going forward. There may well be changes in terms of schooling, which we're expecting an announcement tomorrow. But in terms of any further business closures, we are not expecting that to happen because we are pretty much down to only essential retail, only essential shops being open anyway in the borough. So I would be surprised and disappointed if we learn in 5 hours or whatever it might be that we've got another tier to deal with. But I don't know, Shanna, if there's anything additional that we would add. I would suspect the only additional thing that we could add in here is if the government announced any additional funding that they might be willing to give to tier 4 areas, in which case we might want to be more generous. I don't know in terms of those figures, but I don't know, Owen, as well, if you've heard anything in your finance discussions with the other FDs and 151s.
We've heard it's been discussed, and obviously central government are monitoring what support could be given to local authorities to support obviously businesses, but we're not aware of anything being confirmed or where a date will be confirmed at the moment. And obviously this funding, the ARG, is at the moment all we've got to see is through to March 22. So it's also always a balancing act to see what we can give out now and what might be required later on. So it's always a sort of a difficult sort of thing to really try and juggle at the moment.
Yeah, and so from that point of view, I think we kind of just have to wait and see what we do get in to determine what the policy might look like. But again, talking to the hospitality business, we'll talk about that in a moment, but they're more interested in rate relief and whatever for the next financial year. So and again, no decisions have been made on that as far as we know. So I don't know, Shanna, if you want to come back in on any of those points that Councillor Bate raised.
We have stated in the report just the addition of tier 4 and potential higher tiers as recognised local COVID alert levels within the policy. It doesn't mean we're expecting that. We just wanted to give us some flexibility because there isn't many more businesses to financially support, because the number of closures remaining will be finite for us. It will be immaterial. So we wouldn't need to come back if they did miraculously announce another tier or further restrictions. We would just implement this policy. But it doesn't, we've been, there's been a few times where potentially if it become material and we were having to move beyond the 2.3 million, we certainly would need to come back to this committee.
Yeah, and I think that's what the Secretary of State was almost alluding to in the leaders' debate, which was if you do get to that point where the pot is empty, or you're nearing the emptying of the pot, and again it's a balancing act, as Owen has said, because it's another 13 months or whatever, 14 months that we're supposed to have this money available for. If you do find yourselves in a position of wanting to get more out quickly, then we would need to make an application to central government for more money at that point, but we're not there yet. So I think we're on pretty safe ground here. Members, are there any further points? Councillor Headley.
Yeah, on the bottom of page 6, it talks about future funding. Essex County Council will be getting further funding. It's been doubled from £2 to £4 a head. Has there been any movement on that, or is there any update on the allocation of money and how it will be divided up amongst various authorities? Because it's talking about the majority of Essex being in tier 3. I think that's probably changed even since this report was written. So is there an update on government funding to Essex?
Yeah, I think that might be a typo, to be honest, given that there was only 3 boroughs in tier 3, or tier 2.
It should be 4, should it?
It should be 4, I think.
Yeah, I'm not criticising the report because everything's been done in a matter of hours, but I think as soon as you're able to find out how much Essex is giving, I think Councillor Baggett's right. We should give authority to perhaps the leader of the council and the finance team to make sure that the money is allocated appropriately as quick as possible. So
I think Owen and Shanna have been having conversations, and I may want to talk about that in a moment. One of the things that I did do last week, or whenever it was, I've lost track of days now, but I did write to Councillor Finch regarding some of this money, because if you think about AIDS and adaptation grants, so this came up quite a lot with the hospitality sector, that there is a cut-off of the 15th of October for AIDS and adaptation grants. And obviously for a lot of our hospitality businesses, they started putting their adaptations in preparation for Eat Out to Help Out back in sort of June, July time. So they've not been able to get that money. And I did write to Councillor Finch and ask him whether or not there might be some flexibility with this increase in funding to be able to go back and move the date of that cut-off point. He didn't agree to that in the conversation I had. He said he would keep it under review, but at this stage he wasn't going to agree to it. It might be something that we want to look at as and when some of that funding comes in. But at the moment, that hasn't, as far as I'm aware, but Shanna, you can correct me, we've not we've not had that come forward yet in terms of the money out of central government. So I don't even think Essex have got it yet, to be honest. But Shannon, I know you've been talking to your colleagues around the county, so I don't know if you want to give an update.
Yeah, we still, in terms of allocations, we're still none the wiser in terms of what's going to be passed down. One of the conversations we did have with county is that we will look at funding based on demand levels as opposed to allocation, fairly split as it previously has been, because some authorities haven't paid out the levels that we've paid out. So we are looking and wherever possible bidding for more money. So going back, letting them know when this funding is reducing. We're doing that for business adaptations grants, which is coming directly from county. And we're also going to keep them up to date with ARG as well. So we have made the plea that potentially, if money does come down, certainly it is our intention that we would want to top this pot up. But at the moment, we're still waiting for confirmation of that.
Sorry, Owen, and then Councillor Headley.
So we're having regular meetings with the finance colleagues at county as well, just to obviously make sure we're joined up, what resources they get and how grants are being used, and also to make sure that the grants county get in and what we're doing local district level, they're sort of supporting each other as well. So that's ongoing as well.
And it is worth saying that we've written the form for the whole of the county, haven't we? So in terms of what the businesses are having to apply for, it should be pretty consistent across the whole of the county as well. So, Councillor Headley.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable sort of suggestion, but my understanding is that some of the northern administrations in the county have now gone into a higher tier, and they're probably going to make a larger call for additional resources to support their businesses. So my guess is that the spread of the allocations may be thinner than it was last time. But I think if you've alluded to the fact that we may run out, is there any way that we can support it locally?
Well, I don't think we're going to run out anytime soon. I think that's worth saying. But I do, as the government has said, as Robert Jenrick has said, if we get to a point where we have to spend this before the end of March 2022, then we should go back to government and make a suggestion. I mean, we've done a number of things to top up the pots, haven't we, here in Basildon already, when it comes to things like we were going to top up test and trace, we were going to top up one or two other things. So it's not unusual for the council to do that, and we would look at it if we were getting close to the bottom line. I'm sure we'd come back here and look at how we could allocate money or whatever we need to do to make that happen. But we're not there yet, and I think the point here is, as you've alluded to on the bottom of page 6, there should be additional monies here for Basildon Council and for Basildon's businesses as part of going into tier 4 that we have not yet received. So again, there should not be shouldn't be a hit on our local taxpayer yet to have to plug some of these gaps, because we've not yet had that money. So I think we're asking the right questions, but at the moment, I think Owen seems relaxed about how much is in the pot. I could be wrong, but he seems fairly relaxed about how much is in the pot. And then, if we need to come back here, then we'll do that. And as we've seen, we can convene meetings pretty quickly to make that happen. Members, are there any other questions? In which case, can I ask you to unmute yourselves? And we will go to the recommendations on page 2 of the report. Councillor Smith, how do you vote?
In favour.
Councillor Baggott?
For.
Councillor Headley?
For.
And I vote in favour as well. Thank you, members. Thank you, Shanna and Rob and Owen and everybody who was involved in that. Agenda item 5 is a grant administration support to the Mayor's Charitable Trust. Now, we did talk about this back on the 18th, about the people that we knew were slipping through the gap, and also the people that we knew 24 hours later, particularly, were going to be in trouble. But trying to get the chronology right, it was the Tuesday of that week that we had moved into tier 3, and so therefore we knew that hospitality was going to close for the festive period. And now, obviously, 24 hours after that meeting, we knew that the retail sector was also going to close during the festive period as well. And so officers have been working alongside the Mayor and the trustees of the Mayor's Charity to look at what we could do in terms of a crowdfunding campaign, in terms of raising some money to help the people who are affected. And these are people who are not supported by furlough. They tend to be the casual staff, the seasonal staff. They're not supported by self-employment schemes, and looking at how we could levy some money together to then help and support those people over this period. Now, to be brutally honest, and I think this is reflected in the enclosure that we're asking to look at today, we have to be cognizant of understanding how many donations we may get in, or the Mayor's Charity may get in, and then we'd be asked to take forward. And of course, there might be other decisions that members want to take further down the line. But I think this is, as a starting point in terms of governance and an overview, what we have in front of us here from the Mayor's Charity, I think is a good start. And again, just as we've done with the grant schemes and the ARGs, if we have to come back and we have to make any amendments to policies, then of course in partnership with the Mayor's Charitable Trust, then that might be something further down the line that we may want to do. But by way of introduction, Owen, is this something for you? If I hand over to you, just to give us a bit of an overview of what was debated at the trustees meeting this morning.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I think you sort of covered a lot of it. So at the Mayor's Charitable Trust meeting this morning, trustees have agreed that, supported by the council, it will run a funding campaign for its existing Give You page. That's like a crowdfunding platform that the Mayor's Trust has in place, and also directly with local businesses, to try and help support individuals who have lost earned income as a result of the pandemic, but are not currently supported by the national initiatives. So things like the furlough scheme, things like the self-employed support scheme. So the aim would be to support those, particularly in hospitality and retail sectors, who are able to work due to the tier 3, 4 COVID restrictions, and as I said, are not in receipt of any other direct support. Again, it's trying to aim support at those on seasonal 0-hour contracts who may not be getting any support from anywhere else directly. So the council, the scheme is sort of attached as enclosure 1 to this report. So the council will promote the scheme and administer it through a claims window, similar to what we've done some of the other sort of grants that Wes and Ben's have sort of managed before. Applicants will be able to apply for grant for an online form with access to support through the Customer Services Centre, and a paper-based version of the form will be available if required. We're looking at an allocation up to £100 will be made. But again, that will be dependent on the amount raised and number of applications received. Again, similar to what we've done in the past, where we give as much as we could to the number of applicants who qualify, depending on how much we'd actually got in donations or the Mayor's Trust. So members are asked to approve the actual grant scheme that's set in enclosure 1, and to agree to administer the scheme based on the donation that the Mayor's Trust will give to us, to be able to give out to individuals who qualify. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Owen. And before I bring in members, I should just say, last Tuesday, we held, myself and Councillor McGarren, who has responsibility for business, we held a meeting with our hospitality industry. It was over 35 businesses from the hospitality sector who came along to that Zoom call. And it was a really, really good meeting. It was one of those where you do learn a lot about potential businesses that, the way in which things are actually happening, the rhetoric and reality meeting. And as I say, what part of it was looking at the AIDS and Adaptions grant, but the other side of it was looking at this crowdfunding campaign. Lots of these businesses who want to support their staff, the people that they rely on to help on the front line of their businesses, but they financially have just not been able to do that because of the massive hit in terms of their income that they have seen. And they were very, very supportive of the council and the Mayor's Charity taking something forward that might be able to, help their staff. So this is, as much as we're talking in enclosure here as this being a partnership between the council and the Mayor, which it is, it's also a partnership between the council and those businesses, because those business owners want to help their staff, and we're giving them a platform and a means to be able to do that. And as you see in the eligibility criteria on 3.0 down to 3.8 here, it is really clear about how the business and the employee and the employee have to really demonstrate and show some support for one another there in order for that grant to be approved. So again, this is a first shot at it. We're talking about award levels of £100 per person per window. Clearly, if we got lots and lots more money in than that, we would come back to this committee and we would say, do we want to look at recommending to the Mayor's Charity that we revise that or whatever it might be. But as we start off, we think about people who perhaps would have earned money on tips that they would have got on Christmas Day, on Boxing Day, people looking at New Year's Eve where they might have been working in pubs and bars and waiting tables where they may have got 100 quid in tips or whatever it might be. It's a way of trying to replace some of that lost income. It won't replace everything, we know that, but it will hopefully be a gesture to help some of those people, because these tend to be the lowest paid in the most insecure work in our borough. So I think it's a good suggestion from the Mayor's Charity to use this period to raise money for this endeavour. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us as councillors, as officers, to get the message out there, if we are minded to approve this today, to try and get as many people as possible to throw a fiver in that you may have spent on a pint at Christmas on New Year's Eve that you may throw into the pot to help with this crowdfunding campaign. So let's open this up for a debate to members. Councillor Baggott, you kick us off.
Thanks, Sharon. Obviously, it's a no-brainer whether we approve it or not, because as you've said, this does affect those people on the lowest incomes and those that aren't necessarily in a position to be able to replace that income with some other sort of work. But I think the success of this sort of thing is very much down to how well it's rolled out, how well it's communicated, and you might come back and tell me all this is in place anyway, but I think this is an opportunity for our comms team to get that out. If you've been paying attention to radio across the country over the last 2 or 3 months, there has been numerous cases where the radio stations have led on initiatives like this elsewhere, and the general public and people have been incredibly generous in the way they do it. But of course, it's how it's communicated. And what I would hope is that we somehow have to roll this out to things like Essex Radio or even further afield and get the maximum publicity, because that ultimately will depend on the success or the failure and the amount that we're able to provide for these people.
Yeah, I think that's right, and certainly I know the comms team have been working on this since officers started looking at it just before Christmas. So I'm expecting that we will see that comms campaign ready to roll almost immediately. I think as well that part of this is going to be about the human stories rather than the council. So dare I say it, frankly, it shouldn't be me or any other councillor who is fronting this. It needs to be the people who were on that Zoom call last week. And there were some very, very good, articulate people on there who were making very strong cases, who I know that Liz and the comms team have been talking to over the course of the last few days and weeks. And I'm pretty confident we'll get something out there. Clearly as well, we want the Echo, we want the Yellow Advertiser Online, we want all of our local papers to jump on this and to help push this and promote this, and then we want, as you say, the broadcast media here and further afield to also jump on it, and that will that'll be a big part. But let's also forget, this committee has over the course of the last 9 months, we've helped a lot of businesses out with some of the decisions that we have taken as a committee here. And I'm expecting that some of our partners and some of our stakeholders as a council may also now look at this as an opportunity to give back and to put their hand in their pockets as well, and to help out those people in our borough who are most in need. And this is a real opportunity for those stakeholders, for our partners, to do that as well. And I know the chief exec and some of the other senior leadership team will be talking to those partners and the contracts that they manage to see whether or not they, subject to approval today, will put their hands in their pockets and make those donations as well. So I think you're right. The success and failure of this will be in how we communicate it to the public and how we get it out there. I'm also, I'm very clear, and I hope that the government are later. This isn't going to be over in 2 weeks. This is going to, for our part of the world, yes, it's great that Oxford AstraZeneca was approved today and that will be rolled out. And we've got the vaccine centres all over the borough ready to do that. But there is going to be a period, I would suggest, of 2 to 3 months where we're still living with restrictions. And that is going to impact on non-essential retail and hospitality. And therefore, it's important that we've got the longevity behind this to keep this going and it not just be a 1 week wonder where we put something out and then we forget about it. We need to really motor and get people to support it, I think, for quite some time. And I know that's hard in January, but people, as you say, have been very generous throughout the course of the year. And I'm sure that Basildon and the borough will step up again on this as well. Members, are there any further points, questions? No. Okay. Then the recommendation is on page 1 and 2. Well, I can ask you to unmute yourselves, and we will kick off with Councillor Smith.
In favour.
Councillor Baggott.
For.
Councillor Headley.
For.
And I vote in favour as well. So that is carried unanimously. Thank you, members, and thank you, officers. Are there any other points that any member wishes to raise at this point? In which case, the only thing left to say is Happy New Year to all of you. I hope you enjoy whatever it is that you do on New Year's Eve that doesn't involve the pub or going out or doing anything remotely fun, as we live in Tier 4. But apart from that, thank you all for being here and for taking the time out during this festive break. Thank you all.